have the cookie. Hello! Hi, I am Ori. I used to be Alex, but I was born Oriana. I know what you're thinking. That's a lot of names for one kid. LOL. But there's an explanation for that. I am intersex. In case you don't know what that means, let me explain. Intersex means someone's biology doesn't match what we think of as typical female or male. There are many variations of intersex. When I was a baby, doctors advised my parents to raise me as a girl. But really, the doctors were making their best guess. As I grew older and expressed how I felt about myself and my identity, my family supported me 100%. Hence the name changes, LOL. My intersex type is called partial androgen insensitivity syndrome with mosaicism, which means I have XX and XY cells. Humans are much more diverse than we realize. Intersex variations are around 1 in 500 to 1,000 births, which translates to being as common as red hair. So chances are you have met an intersex person and maybe never knew, because sometimes they don't know themselves. And intersex people can identify as female, male, intersex, non-binary, or whatever they want, really. I am non-binary and use the pronouns they, them. I would like to introduce you to someone very special, to me and my #1 advocate, my mom, Christina.
Thank you, Ori. Hi, I'm Christina. I'm a massage therapist and a writer, but I consider my most important job being a mom.
Moms.
I love research and science, yet I'm also intuitive and I listen to those gut feelings that we all get. So when my partner Josh and I decided to become parents, I wanted to be the best mother I could be, so I researched all about childhood development and parenting. When Ori was born, our oldest was almost 2 years old, and then 2 years later, we had our youngest babe, so our own little party of 5. We certainly are on a unique journey as a family, but raising an intersex kiddo isn't any different than raising any other kid. It's raising the rest of the world that can be the challenge. As Ori said, there are many variations of intersex. In some sectors, especially the medical community, this is called a DSD, or a disorder of sexual development. My partner and I found out about Ori's variation when they were just 7 weeks old. That was on a Friday, and we headed into a long weekend of researching before going to Children's Hospital the following Monday. We are certainly grateful to be millennial parents. The information that we were able to find online far surpassed anything we could have found at our local libraries. We were able to find a website called the Intersex Society of North America. And through that site, we were able to connect with a representative named Jane Goto and have her meet us at our appointment at Children's Hospital that Monday. Jane has become a close family friend who we still have the joy of having in our lives today.
I like to call Jane the baby saver because she has given her time, money, and energy to helping so many families just like mine. And also, I took the selfie because I bet everyone can tell. It's a very kiddish selfie.
She is pretty amazing. So we were able to go into our appointment well-informed with a happy, healthy 7-week-old baby. Through our research, we found that many intersex families are not so lucky. Many families face major surgical decisions shortly after giving birth, and many are not informed of all their possible options. Since the 60s, intersex children have routinely been operated on in ways that were completely unnecessary and could wait until the child could take part in the decisions. Putting it plain and simple, these are genital plastic surgeries, originally used to assign one's gender in a more permanent way, or so they thought. But there have been many stories of people transitioning away from that assigned gender. They also routinely told parents to lie to their children to protect them from the trauma of knowing about their condition. The names of some of these surgeries are clitorectomy, vaginoplasty, and they go on. The following slide that you're viewing is a recreation by the Intersex Society of North America. It's called a phallometer. These are the actual current medical standards for how they would make these decisions. This is their creation of it, but the standards were the same. So as you'll see on the far left, this would be the acceptable length for a clitoris on a baby girl. On the far right, the acceptable length of a penis for a baby boy. If you were intersex and you fell somewhere in the middle of that spectrum, you were destined for surgery. Of course, there are conditions where surgery may be necessary to save a child's life or to provide proper access for urination, but those are not the surgeries that we're speaking of today. The surgeries we're speaking of today were clearly aesthetics. The ramifications of these surgeries are huge. There's obviously the big one. You could possibly have assigned the wrong gender, and you just solidified that with surgery. But there's more. Maybe there's more we don't want to think about. We may not want to think about our kids growing up to be adults that have sex, but that is a part of life. And some of the ramifications of these surgeries can be decreased sensation or an inability to ever orgasm, which, as you can imagine, can affect them in a myriad of ways.
The Human Rights Watch, in partnership with an organization called Interact, released a report last year titled, "I Want to Be Like Nature Made Me." It is based upon interviews with intersex people, families, and physicians.
Their report summarizes, intersex people in the United States are subjected to medical practices that can inflict irreversible physical and psychological harm on them, starting in infancy. Harms that can last throughout their lives. Many of these procedures are done with the stated aim of making it easier for children to grow up normal and integrate more easily into society by helping them conform to a particular sex assignment. The results are often catastrophic, the supposed benefits are largely unproven, and there are generally no urgent health considerations at stake.
The first I remember really learning about these surgeries was when I met Pigeon at Gender Odyssey almost 2 years ago. Pigeon's an intersex activist educator. They had a table there selling shirts and merch. And I thought, They and my parents were bonding over their shared passion for intersex children's rights. And I thought Pidge was super cool. And then for the first time in my life, I realized that I had been protected by my parents, being able to research and educate themselves, and also to care about my autonomy someday as an adult. And you can tell Pigeon is a fun-loving guy.
From the research we have done, it's hard to figure out why these surgeries are still taking place, especially when they've been spoken out against for decades. But that's why we're here today, to try to bring awareness to this issue and hopefully bring into light that this is a violation of children's human rights.
They also said, babies are being born who rely on adults to make decisions in their best interest. And this should mean one thing. When an individual is born with atypical genitalia that pose no physical risk, the treatment should focus on psychosocial and educational support for the family and child. We're not even done yet, but thank you. We're not done though, so still a little more.
For us as parents, the answer was instinctual. No healthy child of ours should undergo any surgery that isn't absolutely medically necessary. I wouldn't alter you or your sister's nose or ears if people thought they didn't look normal. So why would I alter any other part of you, especially a part that no one really sees?
You're all gonna like this part. What are you saying, Mom? You don't like my nose? The following quote is from the Human Rights Watch, the quote we mentioned previously.
The report we mentioned previously.
The report we mentioned previously.
July 2017, 3 former U.S. Surgeons General wrote that they believed there is insufficient evidence that growing up with atypical genitalia leads to psychosocial distress. They also said these surgeries violate an individual's personal right to autonomy over their own future. Ori turned 11 years old the other day.
Yeah!
11, if you can believe it. And I gotta say, I honestly never thought when I first held this babe in my arms at 8 weeks old and cried quietly as I promised them that I would be brave and protect them from the harm that had been done to others. That we would be here over a decade later and see such little progress. As we look back at our society's medical history, we see that many times, even though doctors take an oath to do no harm, sometimes inadvertently or due to ignorance of the era, they do irreparable harm. Think back to lobotomies or electroshock therapy. There are many practices that we once considered normal that we now look at as barbaric and inhumane. My family and many others, including many medical professionals, are confident that someday that is how non-consensual surgeries on intersex children will be viewed. And even back in 2015, the United Nations put out an intersex fact sheet clearly outlining the discriminations and violations of human rights that intersex people have experienced. There are even some countries like Malta, Australia, Germany that are working towards and enacting legislation to protect the autonomy of these children. We need to make sure that our country is one of them. We as parents, we do have to make some of the hard decisions for our children, of course, but this is not a choice that we have the right to make.
How would you feel if you had an intersex kid? How do you feel if you were an intersex kid? When I hear people obsessing over having a girl or a boy, or those parties with the colorful cake, I wonder, what will those parents think if their baby is born like me? Do they even know this is a possibility? I love me. I am kind, energetic, optimistic, and almost always happy and excited. I am strong, I am healthy, and if you have an intersex kid and you give them love and support and respect and autonomy, I have a feeling they will be just as awesome as me, and I was a fat baby.